Okay, so there's a lot of people experiencing a lot of stress right now with the uncertainty of the current times, and working with long-term conditions. That's something that we're quite familiar, kind of working with and helping people to manage. So, what are some of the ways that you're kind of using and helping others to deal with this difficult time and all of the uncertainty?
Yeah, I think you're right in that there's a huge amount of uncertainty around for everybody at the moment, whether they have a long-term condition or not. So people, I suppose, might be worried about what if I or a family member gets ill? How long is lockdown going to last? And, when will things be back to normal? And when will I be able to see my loved ones again? And I suppose there's so much of that that can cause a lot of distress, but also um, a lot of worry about kind of things that are outside of our control. So the first thing that I would usually say to people is to really acknowledge how you're feeling and recognize that it's okay to feel that way. So, for example, if you're finding yourself feeling anxious or worried or low in mood, just acknowledging that that's a really normal and understandable way to feel at the moment, and to kind of give yourself permission to feel that way. Um, and then in terms of kind of things that people might be able to actively do to help, I think it's really worthwhile to try to separate out the things that you can control and the things that you can't. And that might be like helpful to write some of them down and have a list of the things that you can't control. So, for example, how fast the virus spreads, kind of things that happen in the news, or the behavior that other people engage in or don't engage in to do with social distancing. Um, and insofar as possible, to try to let those things go because they're outside of your control. And then on the other hand, to look at the things that are within your control. And so, for example, having some structure in your day, and or being able to engage in some form of pleasurable activities and having a routine. Um, yeah, and then I suppose that once you've identified the things that you can engage in, trying to focus more on that rather than the things that we can control.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess sometimes that takes a bit of creativity as we have to reimagine ways to enjoy kind of interests and pleasures that we once had. So, for example, if we're used to doing group sport or something like that, we can't do that at the moment. So, it might be trying to hone in on elements of that we enjoyed, the physical activity and honing a particular set of skills. So, there might be solo sports we can do or exercise classes we might be able to join online. So I guess it's thinking a bit creatively about how we can still get enjoyment in line with things that we do enjoy. And I guess also acknowledging how we might have to adapt things as well at the moment. So sleep might have just been something that we used to do without thinking about, but with the current kind of pressures and stress, it might be something that we prioritize, kind of getting those 7 to 9 hours depending on what we need in the presence of a lot more stress than we're used to, and having a real ritual of kind of winding down, and acknowledging that those adaptations are important when things are a bit tougher and usual routines are disrupted. And I suppose also the other thing is using this time as a way of kind of developing some of these soothing strategies, so we can perhaps reframe how we consider this time. This is a time where I've got an opportunity to practice mindfulness, practice yoga, or other nourishing things that might be therapeutic to us. Yeah, would you add anything to that?
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good point, just about kind of, I suppose, allowing space for relaxation as well, and um, not having too kind of high standards for what we should be achieving in a given day. So yeah, making space for kind of time to just relax and sort of self-soothe. And I think it's a really good point that you made before going to bed, because I suppose that's a time when people might experience more worry before going to sleep. So really having some sort of ritual to sort of wind down um, and switch off. So while focusing on sort of having some sort of structure in your day and building in some of those pleasurable activities alongside some of the responsibilities that you might want to keep up with, then having a real wind down period at the end of the day where you can try to relax and perhaps distance yourself from social media and things like that might be adding to stress. So like some phone free time in the evenings.
And how about kind of helping others manage stress? What would you say there?
Yeah, I think that's a really hard one because obviously people are very worried about their loved ones at the moment and might be, wanting as much as possible to help their loved ones to manage stress. Um, so I think if you found any of the ideas in this video helpful, then it might be a good idea to pass that on to your loved ones. So thinking about, how they might be able to separate out what is and isn't in their control. And also build some structure and kind of self-care, I suppose, into their own days. But also, particularly for anyone who might be by themselves or who might have additional challenges, such as a long-term condition because of COVID, just making sure that you're doing what you can to check in with them and kind of having sort of regular check-ins with them to maintain connection, which then might help to kind of address their stress as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So kind of sharing resources, checking in with people, and I guess going back to your earlier point, kind of acknowledging where our kind of control spheres end. So not trying to overextend ourselves beyond what we're able to do.
Yeah, exactly.
Great.